that I never told. And it's a relatively recent story. So one year, I remember the date, October 2024. I started having a recurring dream. In the dream, I was in a kind of school, like a high school. I can't really define what the place was like, but I had the impression that it was a big old school or high school. It was daytime and I was in one of those hallways, but there were no students. Everything was empty and I was walking down that hallway. I remember seeing the tiles. It was like a school, like an old school. It was an autumn afternoon because I remember I was dressed warmly with that autumn sun that isn't very strong. And I was walking down the hallway. All the classrooms were empty, but the kids' school supplies were there, even though they weren't. As I kept walking, I started to panic because I was alone. And the dream was recurring because I always dreamed the same thing. In one classroom, there was someone calling me. And I would go in. I would enter that classroom. And there was a man, an older man, who would call me. When I got closer to that man, I could tell that he was dead. I can't explain to you how I knew he was dead. But I sensed that it was a spirit who was talking to me, and that man always told me the same thing. Hector told me, "Tell my daughter to arrive safely." Hector, tell my daughter to arrive safely. I used AI to create an image similar to what I remember from my dream. Picture something like this. The guy showed me a picture frame of a red-haired woman and said, "Tell my daughter," and he showed me the photo of his daughter. "Tell my daughter she arrived safely." And he showed me the photo just like this image I'm showing you. I was surprised because I wanted to ask him what his name was or what his daughter's name was, but I couldn't speak. For me, not being able to speak is the worst thing you could do. I wanted to ask him why I couldn't speak in the dream. I couldn't get my voice out. I wanted to ask him, "What's your name? What's your daughter's name?" What I do remember perfectly is the guy's face, and the face in the framed photo would wake me up. I dreamed this at least 5 times that I remember. Maybe I dreamed it more times and I don't remember. But I remember dreaming it at least 5 times. Telling my daughter that I arrived safely, and I couldn't ask her, "What's your name?" or "What's your daughter's name?" But I did memorize the face in the photo. Yes, I memorized it perfectly. And I could even, well, I don't know how to draw or make a portrait, but I could describe everything so someone else could do it. Well, one of those nights, the man keeps talking to me as if he could read my mind. I couldn't speak. In my mind, it was, "What's your name?" I wanted to know what his name was. And the guy tells me to tell his daughter. He'll show her the photo that I arrived safely. "I'm Ernesto," he tells me, and I wake up. And I don't know why. That last time the guy told me his name, I started to get the feeling that I knew the woman, the one in the picture. It was a photo, the one in the picture frame, it wasn't a drawing. "I know this woman," I said, "but from where? How do I tell her that her dad, Ernesto, arrived safely?" "Who is this woman?" Look, I can't explain it, but it was like an inexplicable certainty. I decided to talk and tell this to one of the security guards in my building. And I told him. He's a pop music listener, so he wasn't going to get scared and he was going to believe me. When I told him this, I tell him, "You know, I'm dreaming about a guy." So he tells me to tell his daughter that he arrived safely and his name is Ernesto. Wait, he tells me what his daughter was like. He didn't tell me the name, but he shows me a picture frame with a girl and I describe everything and tell him she was a redhead. He tells me, wait, because the neighbor from Tower 2, and he tells me her name, which I'm not going to say here because that person follows me. And he also lets me tell the story but not give too many details. He says, look, the neighbor from Tower 2, I'm going to make up a name. Jessica. She lost her dad a couple of months ago. I started dreaming about it in October. Let's say it was the end of October, the moment when I talked to him. And the man had died in August. I remember perfectly that he had died. Pachamama Day, August 1st, says Jessica, the neighbor from Tower 2, who is a redhead. She's really sad because she lost her dad on August 1st. And her dad's name was Ernesto, a man who used to come here very often. When he described himself, he matched the man from my dream. And when he told me about Jessica, I live in a complex with 3 towers and there are a lot of people. Honestly, I don't really remember all the faces of the people who live here. I wondered if I was dreaming about the girl's father. I asked him where she lives and he said Tower 2 and gave me the apartment number. I have access to Tower 2 in the place where I live. Because at some point I live in Tower 3 of this complex now, but I used to live in Tower 2. When I was in a relationship with someone else, we lived together in that other tower, so I have an access key to that tower. And I couldn't hold myself back. And I went to ring his doorbell. And one afternoon at the end of October last year, I went to ring the doorbell of the apartment. This girl comes out. And indeed, it was the girl from the picture frame whom I had seen many times at the pool. I would run into her in the park, but I never paid attention to her and never talked to her. Obviously, her name was that, but it wasn't that name, and I said to her, I have to tell you something, but I don't know how you're going to take it. La Flaca knows me, but not for anything paranormal. She knew me from Channel 26. I asked her if I should do the show this way or that way. And I dreamed about someone who to me is your dad, who tells me to tell you that he arrived safely. Immediately the girl starts crying. She hugged me. Well, today we are, I wouldn't say friends, but we talk quite often. She asked me, do you know the last thing I asked him before closing the coffin? That at that moment when they closed the coffin at the wake, I started to cry and I asked him, I held my dad's body and I asked him, please, to give me a sign if he made it safely, because that was our code. Every time I went out, even though I've been living alone for years, he would ask me, did you get there safely? And it was the same the other way around. And when she told me that and when I saw her, she was the girl in the picture frame. I mean, no, I have no choice but to believe that through dreams, the departed give us messages. Something I already knew from the show was confirmed. That, in general, they don't appear to the person who is in deep mourning because it would be a terrible shock. They appear to a third party who doesn't have an emotional connection with the deceased.